Hello guys, welcome back to my channel. I wanted to film what I read this month, and I'm gonna start to do that each month because I want to be able to look back on those videos and know what I was reading when I was reading it, because I use Kindle Unlimited. So because I rank books, I can keep track, but sometimes I read some books like on other format or other platforms, like on the books app on the iPhone, for example, or in paperback. So I wanted to be able to look back on each month and know for the full year what were my thoughts, what did I read, what did I think about it. So yeah, it's gonna be a short and sweet video, but I just wanted to let you know, guys, what I read this month, how many books I read, and what I thought about it. This month, I would say, was pretty quiet for me because I used to have months like when I see December I read over 30 books, for example. In this month I read 8 books. And this is counting the Harry Potter books because I was reading them from the challenge. So to me, it's like more of a reread, so it's not new books. So yeah, 8 books is not that much. I don't know why I had such a hard time, but I have a pretty good explanation. One of the books that I'm gonna mention, I spent so long on. It was so long for me to get into the book and to finish it. I almost DNF it. So maybe that was the reason I took longer than usual to read. So yeah, I don't know. So I'm gonna start by that book actually, and it's called Unsteady by Peyton Corinne, and it's between Reese and Sadie. So basically Sadie is a figure skater, like ice skater, and Reese is a hockey player. So they meet at the arena one day because Reese is having a panic attack. So we're explaining at the beginning that he suffered a really traumatic accident by one of his adversaries, so another player from another team. And yeah, he's living through his PTSD, his trauma, because the accident was pretty violent. He went to the hospital. He was in critical condition, if I remember correctly. So he had that trauma that he was trying to work with, and he spent the whole summer, I think, not skating, not practicing, and he was the captain of the team. So he had to go back, eventually go back to leading the team, go back to being present and to be on ice, basically. So he met Sadie. She knows about panic attack because she has a pretty hectic family life. So she was trying to help him through those panic attacks. And I would say that the story was beautiful, but first of all, it was a slow burn between Sadie and Reese, in the sense that she was reluctant to give him a chance because she didn't want to date. She has attachment, issues, and on top of that, she didn't want to date a hockey player, I believe. So she took a long time to get into the mood to date him, but then it was insta love. So it didn't make sense to me because we went from slow burn to everything is happening in the last 20-30% of the book at a really rapid pace. In the term of their relationship. So those kind of books to me don't make sense, because if you took so long to develop the relationship, then you can go at a slower pace and still keep building up on it. You don't have to get married the next day. I'm not saying that's what happened in the book. I don't actually think that's what happened, but it took too long for me to start, in the sense that the first 50% of the book was really revisiting his trauma, him running after her being an ass to him, like the way she treated him was awful. So we went through all of that, and then yeah, everything really unraveling rapidly at the end. So I don't know, I felt like the construction of the story could have been done a little bit better, but the writing was really nice, and the spice was nice. It wasn't too much, it wasn't too little, but it was also pretty cliche. The girl who is poor has a tough family situation, and the rich guy coming to a rescue. So I expected more from that book. So yeah, I think I gave it like 3 or 4 stars, which to me is still a good ranking. But yeah, if I could have, I think I would have gave it 3.5. So I think maybe that's why I either gave it 3 or 4. But yeah, it was a little bit unsatisfying to me. So that was Unsteady. Then I read Take My Hand, like you guys know, by Mika Marie, and it's the story between Hayden and Carter. And because I want to keep this video short, I'm not gonna expand on it, but basically Hayden is part of a group called Whisper Me Nothings. They're going on tour. He meets Carter, she's a photographer, and that's where their story is going to develop. Because for you to understand, you have to read Take You Down, which is the first book in the series, and you have to watch my video. I will actually put a link in the description box so you guys can follow along and know a little bit more about the story and what I thought about that couple. But that book was a 5-star. And then, like I said, I read 4 Harry Potter books. I finished them actually. So I read Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire, Harry Potter and the Order of Phoenix, Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince, and the last one is called Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows. So I read all of those in the span of like a week. They were actually quick rereads, even though you know how the last few Harry Potter were a chunk of a book. But it was such an enjoyable experience for me, especially especially because I read them in French and I went back to reading in French, so it was really nice for me to do. So I believe that's why it was a little bit yeah, let me put some lighting. I believe that's why it was easier for me to go quickly through them. So yeah, I would say that I think I gave all of them a 4 or a 5. The one I enjoyed last, now that I finished all of them, I can say that the one that I enjoyed last was the 5th book, because it's so frustrating because Harry is kept in the dark for so many aspects. Nobody is telling him anything. He's acting like a brat. His demeanor is really unreasonable on all aspects, and so the book is frustrating to read. The story is nice, but the book is frustrating to read because we're in between book 2, 3, and 4, where so much was happening because Voldemort was going back to life basically, and then you have 5, which is the perfect break, I would say, between the story, where we have to, you know, put the backstory for the story to be able to continue, if that makes sense. And then you have 6 and 7, where we're bombarded with so many information. And I think it's sad because most of the information we got in 6 and 7 about Voldemort and why he was doing what he was doing could have been put in 5. That's why I think a lot of people were left unsatisfied by the whole Harry Potter series, whether it's the book or the movie, because I feel like so many questions were left unanswered. But yeah, like it or not, as much as I don't like J.K. Rowling for what she stands for and as a person and her thoughts on, you know, trans people and all of that and the LGBTQ community, I still have to say that she's an amazing writer, and that being her debut series and to see the artistry and the way that she wrote it so beautifully, it's like, yeah. But one thing, I didn't know that she repeated herself so much. When I read it back then, because the release between the books were so spaced, there were sometimes years between a book, so I didn't realize that she keeps repeating the whole information. It's like she want to make those books a standalone so that you have the possibility to only read one and still understand. So she's gonna explain to you what Quidditch is, how the team is constructed, who is so and so a character. So it's a bit frustrating when you know the story, especially when you read them back to back, because you're like, okay, you said that before. But other than that, Harry Potter, I have to say. Then I read Puck Shy, and if you guys remember, when I did my Read Mass challenge, I read a book called Trick Shot, and it was a spicy novella. I never thought I was gonna go back to it because, first of all, it was the whole explanation of polyamorous relationship and throuple was so new territory for me. It was confusing to me because it's none of my kinks. It's not something that I'm into, and I had troubles understanding that because I've never been in that situation where I'm in love with 2 people at the same time and they all love each other, like we all love each other. So it was really confusing to me and unrealistic to me because I know trouples exist and I know it's a reality now, but the way it was portrayed in that story was a bit too much for me, especially because the spice was so intense. And if you're new to, you know, to those kind of relationship, it can be, you know, a bit overwhelming at first. But then I went into Puck Shy because I wanted to see how the author, so it's Kayla Gross, was gonna present a monogamous relationship. And of course, it wasn't entirely monogamous. So basically, it's between Riley's sisters, Stevie, and Luca. Luca was Leo's twin from the first story. And basically, we see the aftermath of the trouble, their announcement to the world, how does it affect Leo as a manager, and Lucas. And Lucas is a brother as a hockey player. So why it's gonna affect him, his mood, the way he's gonna play, etc. So he meets Stevie in a sex club and he doesn't know that she's Riley's sister. So all of that, you're like, you know, what a coincidence. Like, what are the chances, you know? But he meets her in a sex club where he can be free. But the funny thing is, he was trying to get out of the attention of the public because of the whole story with his brother, and then he decided to go to a sex club. But I mean, whatever. But it's an exclusive one with NDA, so nobody's gonna put the story out there. So he meets TVs, and he realized that he likes the exhibitionist aspect and the fact of sharing her to a certain extent. Because as the story progresses, we're gonna see that he's gonna engage into some activities with one of his teammates, so the one that took him to the sex club in the first place. Without him crossing a certain line with Stevie, he still want to be the one to give her pleasure, if that makes sense. So all again, it was new territory for me. I mean, I'm in the phases of my life where I think old enough to explore, topics of sexuality. I'm not shy to read spice. I'm not shy to read those kind of spicy novellas because I want to learn more, about, there's so many tropes that I've never read in books. For example, reverse RM, white shoes, and I want to get into that. And I was like, okay, maybe if I start with novella, it's going to ease me into it because I want to know more about multiple partners relationship, like polyamorous relationship. So yeah, I wanted to ease myself into with those novellas, but I have to say that they were pretty right off the bat. So maybe I should have chosen something a little bit more lighter, but it was still an enjoyable story. And I have to say, Kayla Gross has a really, really nice way of writing. Her pen is really beautiful. So even though the story might be shocking to you because it could be a lot of sex and a lot of things that you're not kinks and stuff that you're not going to be into, you can still appreciate the fact that she's a good writer. So yeah, it was still a nice story to read. I think I gave it 4 stars. Yeah, I think I gave it 4 stars on Goodreads. And then I have the last book on my list, and it's Trust Me, and it's from the RLU series by Carly Jean. And if you guys remember, I told you that I did a book Secret Santa, and I received the book, the first book of the series between Cameron and Aurora, and now I don't remember the title. But yeah, I read the first story between Cameron and Aurora, and it was really nice. And then I have this one, and it's between Jasmine and Elio. And if you read the first book, Jasmine is Aurora's best friend, and basically she meets Elio and is, I think, a former NHL player. He had an injury and he started coaching along with her dad. He's actually a friend of her dad, and her dad was a mentor to him, almost like a second dad. So he's not as old as her dad, but he's still older than her by like 10 years. So they meet, and for some reason they decide to live together because she's looking for a place to live and he wants to help her with her social media. She's a content creator, but secretly, and he wants to help her expand her channel and her videos. And so he decides to take her under his wing. So yeah, I was like, okay, this is a bit of a weird setting, but still the story sounded really interesting. And it was a really good book. I think I gave it a 5 star, and I cannot wait to read the next book in the series. But the whole series, I like the setting and I like how it's really realistic, and the couples all took time to explore each other. Some aspects are unrealistic, as always in romance, but it was pretty nice either way. So yeah, that will be all for today. Now the lightning is completely down, so I hope you're gonna still be able to see me and the video is still gonna be enjoyable to watch, even though it's now a little bit down in quality. But yeah, I will see you guys in the next video. Bye.